Welcome back, first timers. I can't believe it's our last episode of First Time Being an Expat, kind of. Man, our time in the Netherlands really flew by, and 3 months felt like 3 days and somehow also felt like a year. I'm not really sure how time does that. But today, Matt and I are going to go through our final pros and cons list together, and we are talking about our takeaways from this incredible life-changing experience. Again, we can't express enough the amount of gratitude we have for being able to have had this kind of experience while so many terrible things are happening around the world right now. And the Netherlands just holds a very special place in our hearts. I hope this series and this final episode are helpful for anyone considering moving abroad. And thanks again to everyone who has cheered us on during this adventure and listened to this series. And if you want to stay in touch with me and Matt, you can do that over on Instagram at Dani Official. That's Daani Official. And you can connect with Matt over at Wigtronic, Wigtronic. I hope you enjoy this final installment of First Time Being an Expat, kind of. Dankjewel en tot ziens, iedereen. One of the reasons you're probably listening to the show is because you like to learn new things, and Skillshare is the place to do just that. One of the founding principles of the internet was to give people access to information they wouldn't normally have access to, and Skillshare has taken this to the next level by creating 29,000 courses with new ones added to their roster every week, ranging from creative writing to marketing to website development and really whatever you're looking to get better at. You'll get to try Skillshare free for 1 month before choosing between two very affordable options at $29 a month or $165 for the year, which comes out to about $13.75 monthly, which is an insane deal for the amount of knowledge you'll be getting access to. Get 30% off your annual membership at the link in the show notes and start learning, well, everything. Now back to the show. All right, our last episode.
Here we are,
back from the Netherlands, and guess what? It's raining in LA.
It is currently raining in Los Angeles.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise,
surprise.
Everywhere we go, it's just a rain cloud. Just follows us around.
It's us. We're the problem.
To be fair, we did have a lovely week this past week here.
Yeah.
It just started raining today for the next few days. So.
Also, how many, pop culture references do you think I can make in the first 30 seconds of this podcast?
Probably a lot, because you're on TikTok way too much.
That's true. I am. It's a problem. Yeah, so we're here. It's raining. Great times. But we, as promised, for anyone who cares, because so many people are listening to this, we have made our final pros and cons list. If you're watching this on YouTube, try not to get scared by how long it looks. We will try and be succinct, although that's a lie because I talk a lot. But any thoughts that you want to share before we get into the pros and cons list?
I mean, I would just say if you have the ability to do something like this, absolutely do it. If you have any questions about the possibility of life outside of anything that you've ever known, like the country that you currently exist in, and you have the means to be able to do something like this for 2 or 3 months and go to a place and really dig in to the scene and the culture, this is the way to do it, because then you arrive at a list this long of pros and cons. I don't think that we would have been able to get something like this together had we only gone there for a week or two. And whenever you go on vacations, I think we were talking about this the other day, it's more it feels like a honeymoon, and you're just getting all the good stuff. But when you go for this duration, you get a lot of good and bad. And I think that is it's just been, I'm just really grateful for the experience, at the end of the day, regardless of the length of both of these lists. So how about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, travel to me has always been such a worthwhile investment. I think it's one of the most important investments you can make in your life. But again, maybe that's a subjective opinion. But for me, I feel like I've always had the biggest amount of growth in the quickest period of time whenever I've traveled, specifically whenever I've traveled alone. And I would say, even though we were traveling together, I was still doing a lot of stuff on my own over there. And that I think was a really great opportunity to like reconnect with myself. And I think that just having the ability to go somewhere, especially if you're coming out of like a very stressful time. I think there's different schools of thoughts on this, but I was listening to a therapist recently talking about like if you've been going through like a very stressful time or you have experienced trauma in a specific place, like especially if it's been like repeated trauma, leaving that place is not necessarily running away. Leaving that place is often going to give you a fresh perspective on your experience. It's going to remind you that there's other life that's being lived outside of the experience that you just had. And I think that the Netherlands was that for us after, family illnesses, 3 miscarriages, a lot of health like struggles the last few years, like crippling anxiety, a lot of, things that were brought on by our local government that basically forced us to have to leave where we lived and like uproot our lives. And that was kind of the initiator for this whole experience in the first place. And I think Amsterdam was like and the Netherlands in general was a really healing like place, particularly for me. And it felt like a nervous system reset. And I'm just really grateful. Like, I don't know how you thank a place, but I feel like it really healed a lot of parts of me that I wasn't sure were ever going to feel good again. And,
in addition, it was like a window into what could be,
Yeah.
Which is, you get to kind of look through that and kind of see the type of life you could have in a place like that.
Well, that's a good segue because that's why we made the pros and cons list, is to kind of weigh out what we think our life could be like over there versus what our life is currently like in the States. So we'll just dive in. Should we do pros or cons first? Maybe cons? Because I think we
maybe
did
pros.
Oh, I think we did pros first last time,
right,
so
let's
maybe
do the
we end
cons.
on a high note.
The cons, the first one on the list is going to be the most obvious because we've talked about it every single episode, and it's something that completely destroyed me over there, and that is the weather, especially in the wintertime. The wind and the rain is just unrelenting. It just went on and on and on and on and on every damn day. It just crushed my spirit and soul. That is absolutely like probably one of my biggest takeaways of like cons of life in the Netherlands. So much so that like one day if we do decide to get over there and actually try to live there, I told Dani, I was like, we just have to make a point to escape for a few months during the wintertime, which as we found out while we were there in the Netherlands, a lot of Dutch people tend to do this.
Particularly to Spain, it seems. Like Spain is a really popular destination in the winter. And Portugal.
Yeah.
We have a friend who just went to Thailand for a couple of weeks. Like that seems like a great option. So yeah, we just have to figure out financially how to be able to like do that. But we'll get creative, figure it out. For me, this is the biggest one, leaving friends and family behind in the States. For any Sex and the City fans, I recently like rewatched the whole series just because millennial trauma. We just rewatch the same shows because we don't have capacity for new shit. And near the end of the series, where Carrie moves to Paris and all of her friends were like, don't do it. And then she's seeing all these, oh my God, Tux is gonna break our computer. She's seeing all of these women having lunch together and like peering in through the window like a creeper. I felt like that was me in the Netherlands, and seeing all these like groups of women hanging out, and I was like, ugh, I miss my girls. I really struggle with that.
Yeah, no, that's huge. That's huge.
Because I feel like I connect with people well, but like Matt has said this before, you can't replace, not that you're ever looking to replace friends, but like there's something so special about having friends that you've had for like 10 years, 20 years. My best friend's case, like we are 4 days apart, it's just like you can't replace that. So I really struggle with that. Let's see. Learning a new language. I feel like
Immersing yourself definitely is the best way, and anyone who's traveled before will know that. Like, if you've had the opportunity to travel anywhere for a longer period of time, immersing yourself in the language, you is definitely the fastest way to pick it up. You weren't necessarily like trying to learn Dutch, but you know like a decent amount of German, and it's pretty similar.
For sure. Although don't tell a Dutch person.
Don't tell
that.
Dutch people that, yeah. Sorry, Dutch friends.
I really truly did feel that the 2 years of German I studied in high school definitely helped me just as I was out and about. I really did not make much of an effort, unlike you, to learn Dutch while I was there. I'm not really sure why. It is a complicated language, and I think it is a bit daunting when you look at learning a language like that versus learning one of the Romantic languages like Spain or Portuguese or Italian or even French. But even having not made any effort whatsoever, by the time we left, just by being immersed over there for 3 months, I definitely like was picking up all kinds of things.
I think just the con about it is like, even though I think the Netherlands got voted like the number 2 or 3 like country in the world that isn't a native speaking English country, but is like friendly to English speakers, because so many people speak English. So it's not necessarily like you would run into this as a problem, but I think in potential professional situations, being able to speak in Dutch, in, you know, legal situations, being able to understand what's happening in Dutch, like that is the thing that I get concerned with, like not knowing everything like to a T. But it is encouraging. It's like you start a little bit every day, and then you start to see like a word here or there on signs, and that encourages you. You're like, oh, I know what that means. And then you keep practicing, and like you get more and more. So even though it's a con initially, I think like it would be fine long term. Tourism, it's especially the time of year we were there. Christmas is a very popular time of year, and
New Year's.
And New Year's too, which was wild.
They weren't joking when they said New Year's in Amsterdam is insane.
Yeah, I for anyone who doesn't know about Girls Love Travel on Facebook, it's the only reason I stay on Facebook. It's the best group ever. I had posed a question in there of like, hey, anybody have recommendations of what to do in Amsterdam on New Year's Eve? And almost everyone said get out.
I understand why too, because
yeah, it was crazy.
it was next level, and it wasn't like the fireworks that we're used to here in the States.
In a controlled situation for the most part, where like everyone goes to like a place to see a show. I mean, in the South, that's a little different. Everyone's using fireworks like all year, all the time, but it's sporadic. But here, it was like everyone had gotten their hands on fireworks, where I don't even know. I didn't even see them for sale anywhere, but it's like shooting them off in the middle of the street, on a rooftop, like in the park. Like you had to be so on top of it, make sure you didn't lose an eye. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was pretty, but also the other thing that like the cognitive dissonance I have over how like eco-friendly the Netherlands is, and then it's like they waste it all on New Year's Eve and completely destroy the environment like in a massive way for one evening. Like the air quality was horrendous. These poor birds were like losing their minds. I was like, I don't understand what's
Well, and the next day when we were out walking around, I mean, it was just trash.
Yeah,
the
it was so dirty.
City of Amsterdam was absolutely annihilated. Just garbage everywhere.
Yeah.
That was a little disheartening. But, you know, I mean, New Year's, the way New Year's is run, and, yeah, like all over the world. Yeah. Every major city has their own thing, but yeah.
I saw a video recently of an overhead shot from a plane of New Year's Eve in Amsterdam. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll post it along with when I post this episode so you can see how crazy it was. And then imagine being on the ground. Let's see. Public transport, particularly during peak tourism. It wasn't necessarily my favorite thing, but I was able to kind of go to a special place. I think you struggled more.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminded me of our time in New York with, you know, like peak, like during rush hour, being on the train and you're just shoved in there like sardines. That was never something that I enjoyed through the 10 years of life in New York City. And it wouldn't be something that I would enjoy living in the Netherlands. But like public transport is a big pro over there in the way that it works. I mean, I could absolutely give up a car today and do nothing but trains and buses over there because it's just so efficient and it's just so easy to get to pretty much any city, any town, any village within the country by public transport.
Or even other countries too.
Yeah, so that's definitely
maybe it's ultimately a pro. The mold. The freaking mold. I swear.
Followed us everywhere.
This wet ass country.
I've just never seen, and I've been to New Orleans and I've been to swamp country in Louisiana. This is probably the closest thing I've seen to that. The Netherlands is by far the wettest place I have ever, like, there's just, if you're not looking at the North Sea, you're looking at rivers, ponds, lakes, streams, canals, irrigation ducts. There's just water everywhere. Then it's raining on top of that. So it's no wonder that these apartments and houses have like mold issues, like some of ours did.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to consider if you're looking at moving there, whether you're going to rent or own. It's like that. I think that's like one of the first things I would be looking for, signs of if I was like inspecting a place.
For sure. Close proximity to neighbors. So again, very similar to New York in that you're kind of on top of each other if you're in like, Amsterdam proper. I think that we're I like having neighbors. I like having people close by, but I think like sharing walls with people is not necessarily something I'm like super stoked on. Even though the last apartment we had was relatively quiet, I think we've just gotten so used to living in houses since we left New York and really, I think, appreciate that. So there's that. Energy costs. So there seems to be like the functionality of some of the like appliances over there. It doesn't seem to be as eco as a lot of the appliances in the States. And so it took us a minute to kind of figure out how stuff worked. And our like landlords in the last place we were in had like texted me and was like, hey, the costs have gone like way up since you guys started living there. I'm happy to send you like what it is, but could you kick in because it's just so much more than what it is. And just like the efficiency of how some of these things work, like we didn't know compared to like how we use things here. Everything it's like a lot, especially if you have like a newer appliance or something.
Like dryers, for example, there, in the States, the dryers are connected with a ventilation, one of those like foil,
like vents outside.
Yeah, they like connect to the outside and they drop all the exhaust outdoors. But the ones in the Netherlands don't have any exhaust system. It's just like this water collection
like it sucks container. The moisture out of the dryer bin and collects all the water, and then you have to just like sporadically empty that water container.
Unless we were doing something wrong. I just felt like we were having to do it, especially if we had like a big load of laundry that we had done sometimes like 2 or 3 times per cycle.
And the other thing is though, like before we figured out how to really use it, we were running that dryer for like a couple hours at a time because it just wasn't drying the clothes. And once we figured out how to use it, that immediately took $50 off the next energy bill the next month. So like that alone was big. So, and I've heard this from other people who live there too, is like energy costs are very high, particularly because of like the war in Ukraine and a lot of the gas is coming from Russia or oil is coming from Russia. So that's something to consider as well. We were talking about this earlier today. I did notice when we got out of the city, there were more people with solar panels, and I'm wondering if they have more electric appliances out there. Global warming, the potential effects of that. I mean, so the Netherlands is basically like below or at sea level. And on one of the canal cruises we took, our tour guide was saying something to the effect of like, God made man, but man made the Netherlands. Like the Netherlands is basically a man-made place. So,
I never knew that. Like it's also like really fascinating. And I think it's a testament to the engineering over there, which is, it's just crazy to think how interconnected everything is and how well everything seems to work. And that was all man-made, And
a long time ago, too. That wasn't, like, new engineering. So on one hand, it's impressive. On the other hand, as sea levels rise, it is disconcerting to think about buying property in a place that is at or below sea level. So, I don't know. We're just going to have to see how that plays out. Missing out on potential work opportunities / a lower professional ceiling. This still remains to be seen. I have had some conversations with people over there that brought some new, interesting professional opportunities to light that I hadn't necessarily considered for myself that could be really cool. I just have a lot more connections here. So it's kind of like do you dig into what you already know, or do you kind of jump off the deep end and go for something that could be potentially really cool and really exciting, or not? Like, who I think I still am just not sure of like what the music scene, like what the potential for the music scene is over there. But as a new friend of ours, Celine Cairo, is an amazing artist you should check out on Spotify or any other streaming platform, because she'll make more money if you stream her music that way. But she was saying that the proximity to London, Paris, Berlin, Sweden, like so much closer, and particularly London and Sweden are like huge songwriting scenes, music scenes, and so that is potentially really exciting, the thought of having access to like multiple music scenes versus being in like one music scene, although some might argue that LA may be like the top music scene. So I don't know, I still need to kind of figure that out personally. In terms of vocal coaching, the rates seem to be much lower there than what I charge in the States. So I don't know if I would necessarily be able to make as much, at least in the world of vocal coaching over there, if I would need to like continue to retain my clients or grow my client base like in the States or somewhere else.
That actually parlays into the next one, which is just lower salaries in general, because I think that's something we heard just across the board in most like of the corporate world over there. You would make, what is it?
Well, like
I
met
third or something of what you could potentially make some like
with a girl, a friend of a client who has been an expat there for about 7 or 8 years now, and she owns her own marketing agency, and she was saying if you're able to keep making money in America but live there, your quality of life is going to be like really great, because she was saying that marketing CEOs over there are making like $60K, whereas like in the States you'd be making like multiple six figures. And this is just one field, so I don't know necessarily like how true that is across different fields. There are definitely some places in Amsterdam where you're like, people are making some real serious money here. I don't know what they do for a living, but I have heard from a few different places or sources that the ceiling tends to be a bit lower financially than it is here.
But you also don't need as much money to live a good life there either. So that offset exists.
You have less options for things in general. That is in the sense of like, you can go to a Target, you can go to a Whole Foods, you can go to a Walmart, and you can get your vitamins, your electronics, your groceries, your clothes, like Costco, BJ's, whatever, all in the same place. In the Netherlands, like, you have to go to specialty shops for any of those things. Like, if you want vitamins, you have to go to the vitamin store. If you want your pharmaceutical drugs, you have to go to a pharmacy. You want beauty stuff, you have to go to Atos, like, or Douglas or something. So it's like everything is kind of like its own thing. It's not like one-stop shopping. That's not a deal breaker for me. It's just a little bit annoying if you are short on time and you want to be able to get everything like in one fell swoop.
I think it makes you more conscious of like what you're buying as a consumer.
Yeah.
So it's like you're really, when you go out to buy something, it's like absolutely like where you're going to get it. You're not just gonna like walk into one of these like Targets and pick up a bunch of other auxiliary stuff just because it happens to be there. And you're like, oh, I guess I could use this.
Right?
Too.
Like, how many times have any of us walked into a Target and only gotten the thing we went in there to get? Smokers. You really struggled with this.
This was killing me.
Yeah.
I just felt like I went back in time. I mean, like I went to college in Texas and I started my career as a musician playing in smoky restaurants and clubs in Dallas, and that was in the late 90s. And I just remember coming home and smelling like smoke. My instrument, my bass, would smell like smoke for 2-3 days after. It was so disheartening. I just hated it so much. And so going to a city like Amsterdam, I mean, pretty much all of the cities had this. Amsterdam was the one where it was the most people, obviously, so you deal with it the most. But it wasn't what you'd think. You'd think, oh, I'm just going to be smelling marijuana all the time. That's Los Angeles, it's not Amsterdam.
So much more LA.
Amsterdam is just all cigarette smoke. And I'm like, what is up with this? Like, people are stuck back in the 90s. It just seems like such a dated thing to do, such an old fad. And yet it's all these kids, all these like 20-year-olds. I'm like, man. The problem I have with it is like the city is so picturesque, and you're like wanting to be outside and out walking around, but like every corner you turn, you're constantly like navigating just clouds of smoke of like people sitting on the street like smoking. So it is what it is, but and I know that's not central to just the Netherlands. I mean, from my experience touring in Europe in general, like I found that there are far more smokers in Europe than in the States. So.
It's like one thing we actually do well here.
Yeah,
like less people
it's being
smoke.
phased out. Yeah,
yeah. The stairs. Of course.
Awful.
What a shit show. I saw a video on Instagram the other day of this woman who has a bulldog who lives in Amsterdam, and she had installed one of those like
old people
elevator concoctions.
It's like a little lift that goes up the rail of the stairs.
And she had this bulldog like in the elevator lift, and he's just going to the stairs.
We'd have to do that with Tux
Yeah.
if we lived there. Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, but politics. I mean, that's just in general everywhere, though, I think. But they did just have an election. Not to get like too into like whatever side you're on, but the guy who won is not. I mean, he's popular enough to have gotten the majority, but a lot of people don't like him or his policies. But the difference I noticed there is like when you talk about politics, it's not people's identity, whereas in the States, it's like people really identify like with the candidate, and there it's sort of like, oh yeah, like I feel whatever way I feel about like this person winning the majority. Okay, what do you want to do for dinner? And it's like on to the next thing. It's not this like deep political conversation where like you hate each other at the end of the conversation. It's just like, yeah, this is what's happening.
I feel like I relate more with that European, at least what we saw in the Netherlands with politics. Like I've never identified with any of our politicians because I just am so jaded and feel like it's all just rotten to the core, you know? I think we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, but it's like the system that's in place there works really well. And apparently from what we've been told, it's hard to change it. And there are so many different parties involved in government there that to like get the majority behind an idea to like strike down something that's
it's like by the time that would happen, it'd be another election again.
Yeah.
Someone else would get in, and
so that's kind of cool to whereas here in the States it just feels like it's like one party, whether it's far right or far left, will write some bills while they're in office, and then the second they're out of office and the far right party comes in,
negates the work
they
they've
completely
done.
reverse everything, and it just goes back and forth every 4 years. So it's
Anyway, politics in general, we're just not a fan. This is going to sound so silly, but you guys, it's hard to stay hydrated. It is so hard to stay hydrated in this country. Like, no one wants to give you water. You have to ask for, like, tap water at least, like, everywhere you go. And then if you ask for it, you have to ask multiple times because they either, like, don't want to or they just forget or...
This happened to us many times, so much so that we're like making a point to talk about it.
Like it's really hard.
I think that it ties in with the no tipping thing, which I love. I love not having to think about tipping at a restaurant. But what's created like here in the States with the tipping culture is this incentive to turn over the tables quicker so you can end up getting more tips by the end of the night. So then that creates this incentive for the waiter to pay more attention to you and your requests. Whereas in the Netherlands, it's not like we had awful service, but
They're
would
just
ask
very
for
chill.
like a carafe of tap water, and we would wait for 40 minutes before it was brought by. So it was,
or before we had to like ask again.
not to mention, when you do get it, you get these little glasses, and I'm just like, it's like a shot of water. I'm like going to down my shot of water.
Yeah.
I'm going to need an entire bottle more of water. Anyway.
Yeah.
It was kind of ridiculous.
Same thing with napkins too. They just give you like one napkin per person, which I appreciate the eco-consciousness of that, but also it's just like you're making them have to do more work because you're like, could I get another napkin?
Can I get 3 or 4 more napkins? Because I'm making a mess over here.
Yeah. Okay, any Dutch people, don't necessarily come for me, but please like educate me if if I've gotten the wrong idea. It feels like the vibe in some places feels a bit status quo, whereas in the States, something I do appreciate is like ingenuity and like our willingness to just figure stuff out and make stuff work. So on a very low level example of this, every time I would call for a cab for us to move all of our shit from one Airbnb to another Airbnb when we were trying out different parts of town, we would have a cab driver come in a van. Like I would specifically order an Uber XL because we had so much stuff. And they would see like Matt's bike case, they'd see Tuck's, and they'd be like, oh no, we don't have enough room. And I was like, oh, well, the seats can go down. They're like, oh no, we can't do that. Like the seats don't go down. Whereas like in America, they'd be like, how are we going to make this work? Like we're going to figure it out. We're going to get it done. And I just started noticing that kind of in different aspects of life, this kind of like, no, this is the way things are done. And that's just what's going to happen. And like, there's no need to try and think outside the box because like that's just how it is. I'm sure that is not the case everywhere. I would assume particularly in like creative industries, like maybe that isn't the case, but that is something I do appreciate about the States is people just figuring shit out. People not matching your energy. This is kind of like, it's funny, but also I could also see it being kind of sad for me, like long term.
This is more of a you problem.
It's definitely more of a me problem. Yeah. Like I'm very like I'll meet someone, I'll be like, hey girl, well, like we're like we're just friends from go. And I noticed, like for example, I bought a bra over there and like it's an intimate experience when you buy a bra, especially if you're getting it from like a good store. Like there's a woman in there like handling you, like measuring you, like she's looking at you like in a bra. You're strangers. So you've already like established this level of intimacy. So I'm just going to be like funny with you. And I would just notice like the girl in the shop was like didn't know what to do with me. And I noticed that in like many different places, like just coming in with this kind of like American exuberance and people just like not being like opposed to it, but just being like, oh wow, that's like really different from what I'm used to, So I just wonder about like making friends. I don't want to only have expat friends when we move over there. Like I want to be friends with people who are from the Netherlands as well. But I also don't want to like not be myself in order to make that happen. So I don't know. I guess I'll just have to trust the process. When we eventually get over there and we'll find each other. I hope you're out there somewhere, future girlfriends. Let's see. People don't pick up their dog shit.
They don't at all. It's wild.
Yeah, like they'll just be like, oh, we don't know what's happening right now. And then they'll just keep
dog shit left and right. Any green space, any grass, there's just piles of dog shit everywhere. Yeah. That is disheartening.
It's not fun.
Very annoying. And then on the sidewalk, obviously, too. It rains so much there, it does get washed away.
That's true.
But yeah, there's just always there's a lot of dogs in the Netherlands, right?
Which, by the way, there are like no or very few homeless dogs in the Netherlands. Like I've looked into this because
it's actually a
fact.
Very
different in the South.
There's like no stray dogs there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like I think the laws are much more strict about like animal abuse there, which is just shocking coming from Nashville and the amount of animal abuse you see, the amount of like loose or just like homeless pets that you see, or they're not pets, just homeless animals that you see on the street there. It was like really refreshing to not just see like a dead dog on the side of the road. And you have to just like wrap your mind around that all the time when you live in Nashville. You constantly are seeing dead animals on the side of the road. It's like really heartbreaking. And I didn't see it once. Like I saw zero roadkill the entire time that we were there.
You see, the only roadkill that I saw, every now and then you'd see like a dead mouse or rat in Amsterdam, because they definitely have, it's like same as New York, they have, as we know, we had like something in the walls, right?
Yeah, we did have something in the walls.
You hear it like scratching the wall. I'm like, it's the same as New York in that way. But I think once on one of my rides, like out in the middle of nowhere, I saw a couple farm dogs, but they were so happy. They were just out for a rip.
But also they live on a farm.
They live on a farm. And
they're not homeless.
I knew where they were coming from.
Yeah. Last one, Amsterdam was dirty, but I have to say, I think, again, I'm going to give it some credit in that I think it was dirty because of the time of year that we were there. It's very touristy. Particularly after New Year's, it was a mess because of the fireworks situation. It wasn't as crazy when we first got there, like early November. I feel like it got progressively dirtier.
I disagree.
Really?
I do, yeah. I think when you look down at the sidewalk, again, very similar to a place like New York, you just see like gum and that kind of stuff that's been like stomped in the ground. It's just everywhere. It's such a picturesque city with all the canals and these like beautiful old buildings, and and I know in the spring and summertime with all the flowers, like I know it looks beautiful, but there's definitely a side of it that I think when you're out walking around in it every day that you see, and it's like slightly dirtier than like another city like Utrecht or Harlem.
Yeah,
or,
I agree with that.
well, we didn't go to Rotterdam. We did The Hague. We went to The Hague.
Like everywhere else we went was pretty pristine.
Yeah,
for sure.
But Amsterdam, you can tell that there's a lot of people that live there.
It's lived in.
It's lived in.
Yeah.
It's just one of the cities that's lived in. So
pros: built-in exercise. It's not that I don't enjoy exercise, but I do appreciate it more when it's just it makes sense. Like it's just like worked into your daily life, like it was for our lives in New York. But it's like you're walking so much. You're biking because it's just the most efficient way to get around. And so it's like you're sweating at some point every day. And I really liked that.
Yeah. And you're going up and down the stairs. I mean, yeah, I definitely felt very healthy being there in that way.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. You're just being active by just being out, and you're not in a car, just walking, I would say easily like 6-7 miles a day.
The one downside to that is like it's hard to be cute. Like if you're like a fashion girly or something, or you're just somebody who like wants to dress nice, knowing that you're going to sweat at some point, it's like you have to be really strategic about what you're wearing, because you don't want to have like sweat stains on something or show up looking like a mess somewhere. So you have to be kind of strategic with like what you wear when on what day. And then it's raining a lot too, so like you're probably going to, I would always have like eyeliner right here from the like rain hitting me in the face on my bike. Anyway, built-in exercise is great. People are civil. I cannot tell you how refreshing this is. I only had one negative interaction with someone in the Netherlands, and guess where they were from? Again, surprise, freaking Americans. And we landed here in LA, and not even 36 hours after, we had like a almost like physical altercation with someone who was like wilding out towards us.
Totally unhinged.
And that did not happen once. It's like usually almost like once a day I have some kind of interaction, whether it's in the car or on the street, where I either witness or am involved in some degree of somebody just being stupid.
That's here.
In the States.
Yeah.
There it was like so peaceful. And people just are like, we're all sharing this space together. Like, don't act a fool, and like, we'll be fine. That was so refreshing.
There's definitely like, it's tight quarters at times. And, if you're on your bike and you're trying to get around, and like, I definitely had instances where people were, hogging up the space, but it's like, okay.
But it's not like aggressive.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone was ever rude to me, and if people were trying to get around, they had their little bells on their bikes.
Yeah.
And same thing with walking. It never felt like anyone was taking anything personally.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens all the time in the States. That's why there's so much road rage. People will not accept that they may be in the wrong in a situation, and I just feel like in the Netherlands everyone's just kind of flowing off of one another, and it's just chill.
People are just chill,
fluid situation. So.
But I think, not to get too deep into this, but I think that is indicative of like the quality of life that they have. I feel like here life is so hard for so many people in the States, and it's like your threshold for stress is so low because for stressful situations is so low because your life is so hard in so many ways that like you're ready to pop off at any moment because like you've just had to deal with something insane. And it's like we don't have the support here. Like there are so many people who need access to mental health in the United States who can't afford it, don't have insurance. Insurance doesn't cover it if you do have insurance. And so you get all these people who are mentally unstable, who are out in these streets, like being crazy. And it's just a sad situation. And I think like there are so many things need to happen for someone to end up unhoused, or for someone to end up in a situation where they're so mentally unstable that they're gonna like just assault you. And here it just is like at any moment someone can just like snap. I think it's a deeper issue of like the problems that we have in our country. And it's just really interesting how just it makes day-to-day life so much easier when people are being better taken care of on every level in their life. Lower costs of living between school, childcare, insurance. We were talking with one of our Uber drivers over there, and he was saying how like childcare is getting like really expensive. And I was like, what is really expensive? And he was like, it's gone up to like €200 a week. And I was like, for full-time childcare? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cry me a river. Like, I have a girlfriend in Nashville who has been on a wait list for like Parents' Day Out, which is like part-time 3 days a week for $800 a week for that. And he was appalled, like could not believe it. So I'm like, $200 a week for full-time childcare? Are you kidding me? Like, take my money. Access to the rest of Europe.
That's a big one for me. I've always loved traveling through Europe. I love old stuff. I love the Mediterranean. I love that we would be in so much closer proximity to places along the Mediterranean, or like going on like a weekend trip up to Scotland, for example, like something like that is just so much more doable.
And so affordable to travel in Europe as well.
Yeah. And
it's not like flying within the States.
And in addition, Schiphol is like one of the most major airports in Europe. So it's like such a connection point to so many places around the world.
And also, it's so easy to get to the airport. I mean, the last neighborhood we were staying in was a 10-minute drive, and here it takes us over an hour to get to LAX. Burbank is much closer, but not as many flights go out of Burbank. But LAX is like always at least an hour, and that's exhausting. And it's not just like a straight easy hour. It's like you're having to deal with LA traffic hour. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that would be so cool to be able to easily travel within Europe and experience all of that.
Plus the trains, just like the Eurorail, like getting to like other countries, it's just so easy that like if you want to take your time, you're gonna hop on like an 8-hour train from Amsterdam to I don't know, Basel or Geneva or something like that, and like done.
Vibes. Aesthetic, character, history. It's so beautiful. I just love old shit. Like personally, I think that maybe this is some past life shit. I don't know. I really love, give me like an exposed beam, give me cobblestone, give me just like a old fireplace, and I just feel so at home. And Amsterdam is that. Like a lot of the Netherlands is that. It's just like so much character that it was just like beautiful to be able to go out and just like that's just what you see every day, It's
not all of that.
It's not all that, yeah.
It's like if you know where you're going within the cities, you'll see all of that, but then like where we were, our last place in Amsterdam, we were like right on the border of like what felt like
the burbs a little bit.
Amsterdam, and then like what immediately felt like kind of corporate-y, like suburby, almost like Eastern Bloc style, apartments. It's just not very like charismatic places.
Yeah, that's true.
So, obviously like the whole country's not going to be completely old, and there's going to be new developments and things like that. Out on like some of my adventure rides, I definitely saw some of those old school like thatch roofs or roofs, I should say. Yeah, all the windmills and some of these like estates like I was talking about along
so beautiful.
The Vecht River is just that's between Utrecht and Amsterdam, that stretch of river, some of the most beautiful architectural things that I saw while we were there those 3 months. That is like probably along that river. I would definitely suggest checking that out.
Yeah.
That was a huge pro for me.
Cultural diversity. So many different types of people live in, particularly Amsterdam, I think, or the major cities in general. Different languages being spoken, so many different types of food, so many different types of like art exhibits, music. That is really something we look for wherever we're living. And I think that's something we missed in Nashville. Nashville is a very diverse place, but it's very segregated. You don't see a lot of these different cultural groups like intermingling because everything is so spread out. And there's also not a lot of effort to bring different groups together. So you kind of have to know where you're going and what you're looking for in order to have those experiences. And I feel like in Amsterdam, in LA as well, like you can just kind of happen upon a lot of different diverse things happening, which we really enjoy. Simpler way of living, for sure.
Yeah, that was like a big A+ for me. I just loved that things were more minimal and it felt easier.
You just don't feel the need to have as much stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but also, again, going back to the way the systems that like have been put in place, everything just, it's more minimal, it's simpler, it's just easier to use. Like the healthcare system, like the website that I went on, you just select all the different plans that you like want to be in your plan, and like then that shows you how much you pay, and it's just, and everyone is on the same system. There's not all of these different threads and like you got to call this person, that's got to call that person, that's got to go, you know. It's, and in the States, I feel like we have 50 different countries in the United States, and with each state just is acting like its own country. So maybe that's why things get so confusing here for me. But yeah, I feel like the Netherlands is like much simpler and more minimal. It's got that Scandinavian kind of minimalist quality to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think like you just don't see a lot of clutter in places. People seem to be very thoughtful about what they decide to bring into their homes or to their spaces. Ease of use. A friend of ours needed to have a unexpected surgical procedure, and there's no conversation about cost. Like, you know, when you go to a hospital or like urgent care or something here, the first thing they ask you is like for your insurance information. And if you don't have that, you're filling out all of this stuff. And it's like, you're there having a medical emergency, trying to fill out all of this like financial paperwork. And I've had other friends who have had like surgeries here, and it's like they're deep in it, and people are coming up to them being like, okay, so we need to take care of these like financials, and you're just like, can I just heal? You know? So just, ease of use of the system. It just makes life so much more peaceful, for sure. Women being treated equally. I just noticed like, it's like an energy thing. I was talked to in the same way as I saw like men talking to other men in like situations where I needed to talk to those men. And whereas like here, sometimes you'll get someone calling you like a honey or a sweetie, or like this interaction we had that almost became like physical the other day. Like this guy basically like picking on me and this other woman, and then trying to assert his like male dominance over us. I didn't experience that at all. Like women are just treated like they're fellow humans and not like lesser beings. The peace of mind that comes with that, and not feeling like you have to constantly fight for yourself or stand up for yourself. There's so much mental energy that goes into that in the States that is really exhausting. It becomes very accumulative, and I'm sure it happens, but I didn't notice it. Yeah. Eco-conscious, like when you take your trash out, they have like every neighborhood has community bins for like glass, paper, trash, and then they also have these bins for rags and clothes that you can't donate but that you aren't going to use anymore, and they take all of that for you too, just like your normal garbage. So that's pretty cool. Every to-go container you get is like paper. There's like no plastic. They don't have shopping bags. If you do get a shopping bag, you have to pay for a tote. Like you're not really getting plastic bags anywhere. Everything is just like, even in the grocery stores, like everything is wrapped in like more eco-friendly things. They just seem to be way more aware of those little things that add up to cause like mass waste. I thought that was really cool. Low crime. So like Americans will be shocked by this. There are no prisons in the Netherlands.
As of 2014.
They closed them because there's just not enough people committing like bad enough crimes. Like what?
I mean, it's impressive.
Can you imagine?
No, I couldn't.
I can't even imagine a world in which the States would ever be in that place. Like, and to be fair, the Netherlands is a tiny, tiny, tiny country. It's like the size of Connecticut,
But there's still, what is it, 13 million people in the Netherlands?
Is it? Are there?
Let me find out.
I mean, geographically, I should say it's like the size of Connecticut. It's so tiny. But yeah, there are no prisons. And I like Googled it to make sure because I heard someone say that, but
17.23 million. So
okay.
That's what the size of maybe not quite the greater LA area. So I think it's like 25 million people here, but it's still really impressive. Like, imagine basically the size, almost the greater LA area, like not a soul like committing a crime bad enough to like merit them getting prison time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where. That being said, I did just see something on Instagram about this couple that got murdered last weekend, who were like having some fight with some neighbor or something. But I don't know what they do in the rare instances when that does happen. If there's something, maybe a place in The Hague or something where they take them, yeah, but I don't think there's necessarily like a prison system like we have here. Anyway, that's wild. Plenty of cool things to do, lots of new innovation. Like there's so many museums and art exhibits, things coming through town, music. You're not going to be bored.
Yeah, no, there's always something going on there. It seems like even outside of Amsterdam, like in some of the other cities, there's just definitely like an effort to make things like art centric. It definitely felt inspiring in that way.
And it feels impressive. Like for the city I think is around 1 million people or just under 1 million people, and it's like for that there are so many museums. There's an opera house. There's a ballet. There's like all of these things that like major cities like New York and LA have, but they're so much bigger, and so I think that just shows an appreciation of the arts that I think the States just really struggles with. I mean, there's constantly art, like funding for arts that's being cut here.
Europe in general has been better about that in my experiences,
for sure.
In Germany, Switzerland, Austria, places like that. There's just always been a stronger foundation for like support for the arts.
Mm-hmm. Large expat community. Yeah, I mean, I think that if we did want to make friends with other people from the States or just other people from other places, there's opportunity to do that too. And I think like making friends with people who know what it's like to like start your life over is really important. Mm-hmm. But again, I would want to make friends with people who are from the Netherlands as well. Like
have like a mix.
Nice little blend.
Different perspectives.
We're growing our friend group. Like we've definitely like made some new friends there. I'm excited to like build on those relationships, and I'm trying to remind myself that like I'm trying to envision a life there where I have like the social richness that I have here. I can't stress to you like how important my friends are to me and how much I love them and how like the incredible group of people that we have in our lives. And so I'm just trying to remind myself that like that also exists, and we got a little glimpse into that there. And so I'm trying to just remind myself that exists there. Willingness to collaborate. People do seem very excited to collaborate, particularly like with Americans, and that could lead to some cool professional opportunities. Temperate climate.
Yeah, I think because of the proximity to the North Sea, it just like they got some snow this week, but it doesn't really get super cold there like it can in parts of Germany and France and like some of the surrounding countries. And then conversely, like in the summertime, it doesn't ever really get terribly hot. I think they had 1 week where it was like in the 90s, but like they don't really have AC there because they don't need it because it's usually in the 70s in the summer, maybe low 80s. So it's like LA weather basically.
Yeah, and nice. Like if you dress appropriately, it doesn't feel like terrible. So yeah, I was surprised. I thought it would be a lot colder in the winter than it actually was.
I think it's just the elements that made it feel like the wind made it obviously feel colder because you're dealing with like 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and it's like it may be 55 degrees outside, but it will feel much colder than that because of those winds. So
Not tipping is also, as it's a con, it's also a pro. Like just the thought work of like not having to do math and like not, it's just included. If you want to tip a little bit extra, if someone's really great, you can. But just to be like, hey, leave, done. Like it just makes everything like efficient and you're rolling and you're done and
just easier. Yeah,
that's nice. And also because you know that like those people are making a living wage. It's not like here where you have to tip people because they're making like $3.25 an hour if you don't tip them, you know. So knowing that people are making a living wage and that this is just like gravy on top of it for them, I think just like feels good to know that. Directness. People are definitely much more direct.
I appreciate this though. This is something that I always loved about my life, you know, in New York. Because like I grew up in the South and people are not direct at all. There's a very passive way of communicating
or they'll like try and like bring something up and then be like, oh no, but let's not talk about this. And you're just
very, like it's very kind of snaky,
yeah.
You know, but in like in a place like New York, they just tell it like it is. And
yeah.
Whether you like it or not, you're going to get an earful. And I feel like the Netherlands is a slightly more polite version of New York. It's like they're going to be direct with you. They're not going to be, you know, assholes, but they're going to be like direct and they're just going to, you know, they're not going to sugarcoat things, which I really appreciate. And it's like, I think it's more about not wasting your time.
Yeah.
You know,
like for example, that what I was talking about earlier with our landlords writing us about the text or about the energy, right? If it were me and my Americanness, I would have been like, hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the apartment. We're so happy to have you there. I hope you're having the best time.
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point, emoji. Just wanted to check in with you because we've noticed an increase in the cost of our energy. And I know like you're in a new space. You probably don't know how to use all the things. But just like for future reference, if you could, and like she just texted me and was like, hey guys, hope everything's good. Notice that the bills went up. If you could help us pay for this, that would be great. If you have questions, let me know. Here's the bill.
Period.
Done. And you're just like, wow, that was so much easier than having to be like, I hope they like me. I hope I seem likable and nice. And, you know, so it is like, I think it definitely helps you to just, and if you aren't talking like that, people are like, can we do this? You know? Yeah. And again, it's not in like a dick kind of way. It's just like
it's refreshing. Considering where we've come from, like what we've been exposed to this point.
Totally. Close to the ocean. This is our last one, by the way.
Yeah,
even though we didn't go to the ocean once the entire time.
I got really close one day on one of my rides, but yeah, no, that I love. I think even just knowing that it's close by is. There's just something like really nice about that.
We really miss that in Nashville. It's like a 7 or 8 hour drive in any direction to get to the ocean.
Yeah, I mean the thing in Nashville that's kind of nice is that you have access to the Atlantic or the Gulf within the same amount of time, right? So it's like 7-8 hours drive to either one, which is nice to have that option. But like, yeah, in the Netherlands you get access to the North Sea, and then again you're not that far of a flight.
Hop on a plane
and be
Italy,
in the Mediterranean
Greece,
in like 2 hours.
Spain, the Portugal,
So that's nice. But yeah, like with the North Sea, I think also just like I maybe being born in July and being a Cancer and having water as a sign, it was very nice just having so much water surrounding me over there.
And in general, just with the canals and everything, it is so nice to just have water as part of your daily life.
It is very peaceful.
As a fiery Sag, I need that to calm me, which is why we work well together. Right? For the most part.
Check, please.
Any closing thoughts?
I mean, I think that's just what I said in the very beginning. Just if you have the ability to travel in this way, do it. Don't hesitate. You'll be glad that you did, and you will learn a lot of things about yourself. You'll learn a lot of things about the place that you're visiting, and you'll learn like what you've been conditioned, with, and what you have to take daily and what you don't have to take daily. And I think that was like a big like wake up call for me being over there. So how about you?
Yeah, all of that for sure. Yeah, I mean, it just feels really surreal to like be back here because it just felt like such a different life over there. And yeah, it's just like the whole thing about like what you have to put up with and what you don't have to put up with daily. I think that was just like so eye-opening for me because you get so used to like dealing with certain things here in the States and just thinking like, well, that's life, and like actually it's not, and actually it doesn't have to be, and actually it can be a lot better and more fulfilling and peaceful and joy-filled. And I think just like, I'm going to try not to get emotional when I say this, but like having the opportunity and the space to like reconnect with myself after having had such a fucking rough like last few years. And I think something that like grief and trauma does, it like makes you not trust yourself. And I think whenever I've traveled, I have learned to trust myself more because you don't have anyone to run decisions by, and you just have to make choices like in the moment. And I think having the opportunity to do that again for an extended period of time was so incredibly healing for me, and to not have to be like on edge constantly, whether it was like navigating the healthcare system here in the States, navigating like misogyny in the States, navigating like political bullshit with people here and people just like closed-mindedness in the States. It was really healing, and it was like really heartbreaking to leave. Like, it may sound melodramatic, but I probably cried for what, like an hour, like the first hour of our flight on the plane.
I mean, I didn't even like watch any movies. I just stared at the seat in front of me for 12 hours, or what was it was an 11-hour flight?
It was 11 hours.
Yeah, 11-hour flight. I mean, I was definitely
I think we were like not ready to come back. I think there's just a lot of things we need to figure out before we like make this move permanently. But I'm just so grateful to the Netherlands for giving us the experience that we had. It was really beautiful. I feel like it even like connected us more as a couple. Like, I think we've always been strong, but again, like the last few years have really tested us in a lot of ways. And I think that it gave us a space to like we really only had each other over there. And I think that like we really like dug into our communication and like trusting each other more, and like just like our decision making that each of us, you know, makes, and being who we are. Like, I think it was just a great growing opportunity to have that time. And
we also proved that we could like work with like American hours. You know, we were definitely, both of us, not on ideal schedules, but
shout out to all of my awesome vocal coaching clients. You guys are the freaking best for singing in the mornings for me, and you all sounded great. Thank you so much for letting me do this.
And a shout out to my Soundstripe family for being accommodating to my schedule, and also the shoddy at times internet connections that we were dealing with. And
Lord, Europe does need to get it together.
Oh my goodness,
internet situation.
Yeah, it's another economy. It is.
But yeah, it was great. I'm like kind of sad that the series is over because I want us to keep doing it, because I wish we were still there.
You just want more opportunities for us to drink wine
and hang out together. It's nice.
Like we don't hang out enough.
No, it was such a beautiful experience, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I got to do it with you, my huff. You're the best. Anyway, you guys have been so great. Thank you for hanging out with us. When we move back, we'll restart the series, and I haven't even asked him, so this is not consensual. But if you guys want it, let us know. But thank you guys for everyone who has actually listened to this and like DM'd us and let us know you've been enjoying it and listening to it. I'm so glad that you have. Yeah, on to the next adventure.